Today, I want to take you on a journey to the heart of historic Cairo, to a place that is one of the world's most important cultural institutions, but one you might not have even heard of, the Museum of Islamic Art. And you'll see, this isn't just a story about art. It's really a story about devastation, about collaboration, and about incredible resilience.
So here's where we're headed. First, we're going to uncover why this museum is such a hidden gem. Then we'll journey through some of its most breathtaking masterpieces. After that, we have to face a really dark moment when its very existence was threatened. But then we'll see how it rose from the rubble, and finally celebrate how this priceless cultural legacy was preserved.
All right, let's dive in. I want you to picture a quiet sanctuary, right in the middle of the beautiful chaos of Cairo. Inside this building, there are over 100,000 artifacts, and each one whispers stories from more than 1,000 years of history, stretching all across the Islamic world, from Spain to India. And here it is. This is the museum's grand facade, a magnificent piece of neo-Mamluk architecture from when it was founded back in 1903. It really stands as this kind of architectural bridge, you know? It connects the city's medieval past with modern Cairo. It's just the perfect home for a collection that links centuries of art and history.
You know, even though it holds one of the world's most impressive collections, it's still what this quote says. Definitely Cairo's most underrated museum. It's not usually on the big tour group schedules, which honestly means that if you do go, you're rewarded with a much more personal, a much more special experience. And okay, here's a little insider tip for you, for when you visit. As you're wandering through its 25 galleries, keep an eye out for these little gold-colored labels. They're basically a curated guide, marking the absolute must-see masterpieces. It's a fantastic way to navigate the most significant treasures in this massive collection.
So, let's follow that golden trail and take a look at a few of these masterpieces ourselves. This is where we can start to appreciate the incredible breadth of this collection, where art, science, and history all just beautifully intertwine.
Our first stop is this 15th century astrolabe. It's from Turkey, made of copper alloy, and just beautifully inlaid with shimmering silver and gold. I mean, look at it. It's a perfect example of where breathtaking artistry meets just brilliant science.
But to really appreciate this piece, we have to understand what it did. The astrolabe was essentially the GPS of its time, a handheld model of the entire cosmos. Think about it. Astronomers used it to measure stars, the faithful used it to find the precise times for prayer, and sailors relied on it to navigate these incredibly treacherous trade routes. This one instrument shaped science, faith, and commerce.
And from the world of science, we turn to the sacred. What you're looking at here is one of the museum's most precious objects, an 8th century Holy Quran written on parchment. This is one of the oldest copies of the Quran in existence, anywhere. The text itself is written in Kufic, which is this early, really beautiful geometric style of Arabic script. You see, in Islamic art, because the Quran was revealed in Arabic, the language itself is considered a sacred art form. And this manuscript, this is a masterful example of that belief in practice. Now look at the life and energy in this piece. It's a ceramic fragment from the Fatimid dynasty, which ruled Egypt from the 10th to the 12th century. And you might notice something that seems a little unusual in the wider context of Islamic art, the very clear depiction of a living creature. And this piece highlights a really fascinating distinction in artistic traditions. Generally speaking, Sunni tradition tends to avoid depicting living beings because the act of creation is seen as something unique to God. But the Fatimids, they were Shia, and they held a more relaxed view. And this allowed their artists to create these wonderfully vibrant scenes of courtly life, just filled with dancers, musicians, and animals. But our journey through these beautiful galleries is about to take a sudden and very dark turn. In 2014, this entire collection, this home for a millennium of culture, was violently attacked. On the morning of January 24th, a huge car bomb exploded. Its target was the police headquarters, which is directly across the street from the museum. Now, the museum itself wasn't the target, but it took the full, devastating force of the shockwave. Its entire facade was shattered, and inside, a catastrophe was unfolding. The human cost of the bombing was tragic, of course, and the cultural cost was just staggering. 179. That's the number of priceless artifacts. Delicate glass, intricate ceramics, timeless treasures that were either severely damaged or just completely shattered in an instant. The words of Professor Shahinda Karim just capture the sheer despair of that moment. What had been this pristine collection, so carefully preserved for over a century, was now a scene of complete and utter devastation. A cultural treasure just lay in ruins.
But, and this is the incredible part, destruction is not the end of this story. Because from that rubble emerges this unbelievable tale of hope, of global collaboration, and of meticulous, painstaking recovery.
The response was immediate, and it was global. Experts from world-renowned institutions like the Smithsonian and the Met flew in to help. An international coalition came together, with the UAE donating $8 million. And right at the heart of it all were the Egyptian conservators, who began the monumental task of piecing history back together, literally fragment by fragment. Just 3 years later, in 2017, the museum reopened.
The spirit of that whole recovery is so brilliantly captured by this simple, powerful little detail. If you visit the museum today, you'll see these small red dot stickers next to some of the objects. These mark the 160 artifacts that were damaged and have since been restored. And the repair work is so seamless you can barely see it. Those dots, they're not scars, they're symbols of survival. They're a quiet tribute to the hands that healed them. And that brings us to our final chapter, the museum as it stands today. It's a legacy that was preserved and a powerful statement of victory over those who seek to destroy culture. The museum's reopening lets us ask some deeper questions about the collection itself. For instance, what does Islamic art even mean? The answer you'll find inside these walls, well, it might just surprise you.
The collection itself gives us a really fascinating answer, one that tells a story of profound diversity. Because among its treasures, there are artifacts from the Fatimid and Ayyubid eras that depict Jesus Christ and the Virgin Mary. These aren't just anomalies, they are powerful testaments to the cultural exchange and religious tolerance that actually characterize these periods of Islamic history.
And for me, perhaps no object represents this story of survival better than this Mamluk-era mosque lamp. You see, these delicate glass lamps were among the most damaged artifacts in the blast. So, to see one restored to its ethereal, light-giving beauty, it's like witnessing the museum's entire story in a single object, fragile, shattered, and yet somehow enduring.
Ultimately, the story of this museum forces us to ask a pretty profound question. The restoration wasn't just about repairing a building or gluing pottery back together. It was an act of defiance. It was a global effort that asks all of us to consider, what does it really mean to preserve a culture's soul?